when my grandmother's sister died, among her possessions was a bundle of photographs, and tucked away in the middle of that bundle was this very small photograph. There's a young woman dressed for the winter. So she's got a coat on and a scarf and a hat, and she's sort of squinting into the sun. The body's really clear, but the face is a little bit blurred. If you turn the photo over, on the back, somebody, I don't know who, has written in pencil, Eliza, and then a question mark. I was always told I had a great aunt who emigrated to Canada, and it seemed to me a very glamorous thing. I often imagined this emigrant, a grown woman on the deck of a ship, holding on to her hat. It was only later I realised that the true story was more complicated. I discovered that her name was Eliza Showell, and that she was only 12 years old when she made the journey across the Atlantic in 1908. She was placed in indentured domestic service on a farm in rural Nova Scotia, and she would never return to England or have any meaningful contact with her family again. I wanted to fill in the gaps in her story, and so I began writing about her. Eliza, queen of all weather-beds and dander, common nettles and dock, sticklebacks, angleshades, sparrows, lice, moles hung from nails like velvet gloves. In the leather beyond the cut, see her, queen of dung beetles and dog violets, a crown on her head of all the town's daisies, growing on their petal tips. Eliza's hair, dirty sorrel in sunlight, lights the long grass ablaze. Eliza grew up in a place called Bilston in the Black Country, between Birmingham and Wolverhampton. She lived with her mother and her older brothers. Her father was long dead, and the family was poor. Then when she was 12, Eliza's mother died, and her life changed forever. I went to see Valerie Hart, a local historian who lives not far from me in Birmingham. Val has spent years researching the Borsall Heath area of the city and the families who passed through it.
Birmingham was a city that grew so late, if you know what I mean. It was during the 19th century that it burst into existence with the Industrial Revolution, really. And people were pouring in from the countryside in search of work. And what the builders did was built as many houses in as densely as possible as they could in the centre of Birmingham. The courts were very dark because they were built up so high, often in close proximity to factories and so on. The air was very polluted. There were children roaming the streets, begging on the streets, taking food from bins and from the gutters and whatever they could find. It was a very, very hard life, and there was a very high mortality rate. I mean, children were lucky to make it to school age, really.
Come by night, when spirits fly from the flames of the furnaces. By night, belly darker than day, when the earth spews sulphur, pounding and hammering, men stumbling down its deepest seams, a smutter of lamps, the drunken air. Take the form of a moth, on shivering wings take the wind, swift, to the court on Silver Street. The passage, brewers, stink of the miskin, a window pane cracked, laundry hung across each inch of the kitchen. Here is the place, damp walls, snuffed candle, a child and a mother sweat beneath a blanket, thin as vixens, both their hands raw from washing. Eliza, the little stubborn one, is dreaming. See the freckles twitch, see the dark of her lashes. Curled against her mother's wheezing back, She digs her heels and dreams she is riding, bareback across the Liso, beyond the town's rough hems. Her brothers, the steelworks, the sweltering chapel, that terrible hovering rook of the workhouse. Dreaming, dreaming. After their mother died, Eliza's brothers struggled and couldn't afford to keep her. Following a visit from the welfare officer, her older brother was pressured to sign papers, allowing her to be taken into a children's home. It was founded by a man called John Middlemore, and it was from there that she was sent to Canada. This wasn't an uncommon story. Between 1860 and 1960, over 130,000 of Britain's poorest and most vulnerable children emigrated to distant parts of former British colonies. They were sent by childcare agencies, religious missions and philanthropic organisations. They became known as home children.
John Middlemore in Birmingham was a member of a wealthy family. He'd been in America, he'd seen children from the American Civil Wars who'd been orphaned, placed with families, farming families in the backwoods, and he'd seen that working. So he had a sort of idea in his mind. He came back to England. He describes wandering the streets, looking at all these children begging and in terrible conditions. And so he raised the money and put in some of his own family money and rented some premises and started off with just a few children in 1872. And then the following year, he took the first group over himself to Canada. I think he had the absolute best of intentions. I'm sure what he was trying to do was trying to rescue these children, to save them a life of appalling crime and poverty, and trying to give them a new life.
So we're just travelling through the city now, through Borsall Heath up into Highgate, which is where the original Middlemore homes were. Driving here now, it's almost impossible to imagine this is where the homes stood, as what's been built on the site now is a great big housing estate full of luxury flats and modern homes. So when I first came to visit the building of the homes, it was actually just before they demolished it. I wanted to visit for a while, and I looked up the address just online, saw a clipping from the local newspaper saying it was about to be demolished the following week. So we pretty much got in the car with the baby and just came down here one sort of spring evening to have a look at it. And it was almost unrecognisable from what you can see now. It's like a beautiful old red brick Victorian building. By the time we came to see it, it'd been left to dereliction and ruin, which in itself was really beautiful. There were lots of nettles and buddleia and ivy growing out of the windows and all around it. It felt really melancholy. I think like lots of buildings with a sad history, a sad past, it felt like it was holding all of that sorrow, all of those stories of the thousands of children that passed through it. And I remember it being such an eerie thing, so we were standing looking up at the building, which had bars and mesh on the windows. And as we were looking up, the sun must have hit the window. And I remember for a second, with that trick of the light, imagining or feeling that I saw like the shape of someone in the window upstairs. And that seemed this really sort of profound moment of connection or haunting for me. This idea that we can glimpse someone or feel that we glimpse them, you know, through a trick of the light or their records. But their voice is lost to us. We can't ever hear their voice or hear the whole of the story. And maybe that's the point where poems and the imagination step in to try and fill in the gaps, fill in the blanks. Children's Emigration Home, Birmingham, December 1907. A girl stands at the barred window of 157 St Luke's Road, watching snow fall upon the cobbled fold. Her skin is freckled and pocked, her shorn hair russet as a young fox. Beneath her eyes, blue moons. She's wearing a grey nightgown, A bruise circles their wrist. Snow enchants everything. Is she singing? Praying? Calling someone's name? Her eyelashes upon the glass. Dark wings in the frost. In the dormitory at night, a garden of girls is blooming. The hum of their hearts like bees in swarm, thrumming, thrumming. Their dreams overgrown and blown to seed. Sorrow's blackbird high in the wych elm sings. Lily, camellia, ivy, rose. Poor flowers of the field. Wrong soil, worst season. How their tendrils unfurl from their narrow beds. Reach out through the darkness. So we're now in the centre of Birmingham, outside the Library of Birmingham, which is home to the archives, the Middlemore archives. We're going to go inside and hopefully see some of Eliza's original Middlemore records.
Yeah, archives is on level 4, and this one will take you straight there.
Perfect.
Enjoyed it there.
Thank you
Nice
so
job,
much.
nice job.
Got an appointment for this afternoon.
So there's a few different records.
So here we can see some of the statistics from the homes in 1907 and 1908, the years Eliza passed through Middlemore. Reasons for admitting children into the homes. Treated with criminal cruelty by parents or guardians. Street Arabs, practically homeless. Drunken and criminal parents or guardians. Cases of pauperism and abject destitution. I think seeing these reports, it reminds me that these were the most vulnerable children in the country. Children now who'd be the most vulnerable in the care system. The thought of sending them to goodness knows who all those miles away feels terribly sad, misguided. Ah, here she is. Showell Eliza, 12. Mother and father dead. Girl living with elder brothers and all occupied their one bedroom and all slept in one bed. How dealt with. To Canada, May 16, 1908.
They went off by train to Liverpool Docks, and Liverpool Docks would have been absolutely packed with people because it was part of a massive wave of emigration everywhere. The Middlemore children always had sort of designated area for sleeping in, and they had chaperones with them, obviously. But invariably, after the first day or so, they were all violently seasick.
Sailing day, Liverpool. The girls are crying like little wenches. Goodbye, goodbye, good luck, goodbye. Roaring squarely, the wind moithers as we climb the steps. Birdie legs a shiver in her itchy new stockings.
Nellie, Margaret, Kathleen, Dora.
White hankies whipped from our waving arms, quick as birds flying up. Wim off!
Agnes, Eliza, Peg, Hilda.
Only Dora piped blarting. The rest of us ghosty-faced. So quiet, you can hear our bellies jimmock as the waves wreck the ship. Goodbye, goodbye, good luck, goodbye.
Age 3, 12, 11, 7.
Watching Liverpool shrink to a doll's town in the fog, already wiping out the sight of us. Goodbye, goodbye, good riddance, goodbye.
Dakin, Tonkin, Pike, Wonder.
11 days, 11 nights. Nothing but the waves and my shivering guts and Dora Pike blarting. And the way I bite my tongue till it bleeds and shut that memory like a miskin door.
And they saw icebergs quite often. But then when they arrived in Canada, it was still long journeys, train journeys out to the backwoods to drop children off in their new homes. They used to advertise English children arriving. And then if farmers applied, they had to have a reference from someone, from a minister, saying that they were a fit person. But, I mean, that was about it, really. And they could apply for a boy of 9 or a girl of 10.
What do you think they made of the sort of the new world they entered when they arrived in Canada?
I think it must have been extraordinary for them. You arrive in this isolated farm where there's nobody else around.
The cart rattles us as it rides the rough cobbles, out from the town to the dirt road wicked with bubbles. White dust sparkling everywhere. My voice shut up like a jack-in-the-box, waiting to pop out. What do they call you? He says. Eliza, I says. Lizzie then, he says. This is the farm. I keep my eyes on the floor. It's burls of white dust, as Mr. McPhail smooths his white moustache in a small cracked looking glass on the shelf. He don't believe in vanity, thieving, lying, gossiping, lazy and cussing. Mind that, he says, or we'll send you back so quick your boots will burn.
They weren't choosing children for love. They were choosing them for the ability to work.
Laurie Olszewski is the president of Home Children Canada, a charity working with surviving home children and their relatives.
You know, this has been a very hidden topic in both the UK and in Canada. It was a form of human trafficking. It was a violation of their human rights.
The charity is dedicated to preserving the stories of the home children and helping their descendants with research and information. It's estimated that 1 in 10 Canadians today is descended from a home child.
You know, in Canada, there was a lot of stigmatization placed on these children. So they didn't want people to know. And a lot of them went to their graves not sharing the story.
And I wonder, would you tell us how you came to be involved with the story of the home children? Because I think you've got a very deep personal connection, haven't you?
I do. My mother is actually one of the home children that came to Canada. She came through the Salvation Army, and she was only 2 years of age when she arrived in Canada. She was actually one of the first children in Ontario that were legally adopted. She really didn't even know she was a home child, and she had come to me at the age of 86. It took her all those years to even mention that she was adopted. She carried something in her soul. And I always knew that there was something that bothered her all of her life, and she wasn't forthcoming with it. So when she started talking about this, I knew this was what had bothered her all her life. And it's resonates with most of the families that we talk to because, it was a darkly kept secret.
The land swallowed them, gutted them, spat out their dreams, broke their bones with its wintry teeth, its frozen farms, gobbled them into the loam like bad seeds, and let the worms comfort them. In spite the drought and the flood, the hostile roots of the spruce, the teeth of voles in the autumn mulch, the green shoots pushed up into the wild blue, to the love of the sun. Walk across the hills of Waikogama, when the light near blinds you, and you will see them in the furrows, in the heart sore violets, the shivering pines. Nellie Higgins, Rose Elwell, Dora Pike, Margaret Proctor, Agnes. The home children were visited just once a year by a welfare inspector, and the scant details of their lives recorded in brief reports. Here's the second report where she's 14. There's no evidence there'd been any visits for 1.5 years since she was placed. Is the child in good health? Yes. Does the child make a complaint? No. Is the home satisfactory? Yes, but very rough. This is a poor home. The girl seems quite on a par with her environment.
Rise afore cockcrow, light the fire, fill the pails from the creaking pump. Slop the pig in the piglets, turn out the hens, feed and water them round under the roasted straw. Warm Mrs. McPhail's milk in a baby's tin cup. Sweep the floors of lime dust, strain the milk, cook the breakfast, pancakes, eggs, sweet thick tea, wash the dishes. Tend to Mrs. McPhail, the grate, make bread, sweep the floors, turn and serve, the wheels, wash the dishes, slop the pigs, the hens, dish your boats for tend to Mrs. McPhail, wash myself, say my prayers, our pigging, dream of running away, dream of leaving the mare and running to God knows where.
In the Birmingham archives, along with the reports by welfare officers, you can also find letters written by the home children. I write these few lines to you hoping to find you quite well as it leaves me at present. I'm safe here at my new home in Canada. I find this a nice country and it is very hot here and cold in the winter. I've been out at Canada about 2 weeks now and I did not know a thing about farming. And now I can drive horses and I've got a apple tree of my own. This is a nice country and I'm going to have a farmhouse when I get a man. Read this letter to the boys, please. Please write back. I just feel this yearning running through all of them, doesn't there? She was lonely, little foal, and the loneliness was so deep. A field chest high of snow she stumbled through, shivering, a night without stars or moon. It was so deep, little foal, that she would never know the bottom. It was so deep inside her. When she stroked you and kissed you, her bony fingers lifting the rough hairs of your mane, she was lost in that meadow, snow blowing, fumbling, but holding your skittery body to her chest. She held her foul heart, its dark blessing a burn in spite the blizzard.
In the quiet of 40, I go wandering, tramping the fields, catch the blossom coming off the branches like snow. I ain't never knowed a place like this afore. Breeze that boxes your ears with beam, hush hush grasses, them little jewel birds in the air. I spy on the quarry, lime dust blowing up in great white clouds, men turn ghosts, the boats crossing the lake like needles through cloth. I'm waiting for Jim's letter, like he promised, when he let him take me away. My hair still long, the earth still churned on Mum's grave. When there's no light left, my bones and sore, I visit the baby foal, bright and black as a seam of coal, stroke her neck till her gleams. I ain't got no one, I tells her, no one who's mine now, only you.
This is what I really wanted to see. The paper's so thick. It's a bit terrifying to touch it. So this is a beautifully written letter on a scrap of paper. And it's from James Showell, Jim, who's Eliza's eldest brother. January the 4th, 1920. So this is 12 years after the family was separated. Dear Sir, should I be trespassing on your valuable time and generosity by asking if you could furnish me with the address of my sister Eliza Showell? Since joining the army in 1914, I've lost all trace of her. I should esteem it a great favour if you could oblige. Yours very respectfully, James Showell. Just the difficulties of fate and the time that her mum died. But we can see that just a few years later, her brothers, a settled man with a family, would have had all the resources to look after her. If only they could have held on for a little bit longer.
Child migration didn't happen in the Dark Ages so long ago that we weren't expected to know any better. No, this was happening in the United Kingdom until the late 1960s. And as nations, we need to know these uncomfortable truths. That is why
In 2010, then Prime Minister Gordon Brown made an official apology on behalf of the UK government to child migrants and their families.
We are sorry that instead of caring for you, your country did turn its back on you. And it's my genuine hope that today's apology will go some way towards easing even a small amount of the pain you've endured for many decades. So I say to our sons and daughters here, welcome home. You are with friends. We will support you all your lives. Thank you.
Eliza remained in the same small area of Cape Breton for the rest of her days, working in domestic service and never marrying or raising a family of her own. She died in a seniors' home in Inverness, Nova Scotia, in 1978. In 2010, I went to visit the small rural site where Eliza is buried. The cemetery is at the end of a long rural road that overlooks the lake. It's a peaceful place, silver birch and mayflowers, deep snow in winter which silences everything. I picked some wildflowers for Eliza's grave and ran my fingers over her name on the stone. I wanted her to know that she had a family who remembered her, that she hadn't been forgotten. Imagine her in the snow globe of the first winter, when the snow falls for months, when the wind is a coyote at the barn doors, and the Scotch pines are furred like great bears. The whiteness changes everything. Everything is wiped away. The back roads, the churches, the dead returning to Loam in the Malaga Watch cemetery. Even the lake itself has been drunk by whiteness. Only she has colour, that sorrel hair, like a bird from the old country. Shake the glass globe and watch her in miniature. No matter how we shake, the snow will still fall. The foals suck milk from her fingers in the stable. The violets lift their trembling shoots from the earth. The snow falls. It is happening still. The snow falls as if it will never stop falling. Somewhere we choose not to look. Look, she's crying. Now shake again, and her tears melt like snowflakes on her cheeks.